Welcome to the latest edition of the GRADEx Show on Earth, powered by GRADEx Media. I'm James Cybulski. He is the GRADEx CEO, Fab Del Rio. We got a jam-packed show this week. Just a quick reminder, everybody, if you haven't been subscribed just yet on our YouTube page, mash that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Make sure you're on board because, Fab, at some point in time, as we build this subscriber membership up, we're going to have to hook somebody up with a sweet prize to sweeten the pot. What do you say? What do we do?
Oh, that's a nice
idea. Is that putting
idea.
Pressure? Is that putting pressure? Is that a good idea?
Oh, smash that like button, hit the subscribe. Absolutely. We can do that. We can do that. Okay. Yeah. So only available to subscribers. What a great idea.
There you go. Okay. And then we'll be looking at hooking up. And we'll talk more about this as the membership grows. But there is some incentives. Membership has its privileges, as you may remember those commercials back in the day. Okay, look, we got a ton to get to. We've got a fantastic guest, an absolute heavyweight in the collectibles industry, Baron Bedesky from the Professional Hockey Players Association, also from In the Game. He has been in the industry for well over a half a century. He has seen it all, from the rise of the rookie card to the billion-dollar industry it is today. So that's a great conversation we're looking forward to. A reminder, GRADEx is also going to be on hand at the Toronto Expo coming up first weekend of May. You're going to be there. I'm going to be roaming the building as well. So looking forward to connecting, the two of us, West Coast, East Coast, coming together and hopefully connecting with some of our listeners and some of our viewers as well. That's going to be a fun. And this is a big one here. A lot of big stars coming in for this one here too, Fab.
Oh, yeah. The list of autograph guests is absolutely nuts. The Expo has really just turned into one of those truly elite shows in the industry, really only second to the National. And, between, the guests, the events, the ability to have your items graded, certified, and then it is the number one hockey show on the planet, and it just keeps getting stronger and stronger every year, and we're really looking forward to it. It's one of those special times of the year.
That's going to be a great time. Coming up, by the way, with Baron, we're going to talk about a very confusing, we've touched on it in previous episodes, but the rookie card and how convoluted and what is the true rookie card and the rise and the growth and the definition of the rookie card. It's complicated. So stick around for that conversation coming up in a little bit. So many different stories and things happening right now. I do want to hit on, Fab, you and I, because it's our vintage, we were Tecmo Bowl guys. We are of the Tecmo Bowl generation with Nintendo, but I am blown away as Topps kind of, right at the release with the NFL cards coming back a few weeks ago, they announced that they were doing some Tecmo Bowl inserts. I cannot believe the price of what we're looking at, of what we're seeing here now for what some of these cards are going for. And these aren't cards that are signed. It is wild what we're seeing people bidding on the market right now across the industry.
Yeah, so the Tecmo Bowl insert card and the whole insert set that is in 2025 Topps Chrome NFL is something else. It's really tapped into nostalgia of people our age, and you also have in Topps Chrome WWE the Garbage Pail Kids insert, which is really going nuts. And the deal with both of these inserts is they're case hits, or known as super short prints. So they are very hard to come by. And in terms of the Tecmo Bowl, I mean, if you've played the game, you're probably familiar with when you score a touchdown, that animation that goes on where the announcer yells touchdown and the athlete spikes the ball and so on. So it's that scene, a snapshot of that scene where the player's spiking the ball and kind of highlighted on them. And there are different variations. There are autograph versions. And the first major sale to come out from that insert is the Josh Allen, which sold for $5,000 US. And shortly after, we saw Patrick Mahomes that was listed for 12,000 US. I believe that one's still up. I don't think it's sold yet, but man, it goes to show the power of nostalgia, the power of that video game, because it was the first big, truly, continent-wide football game. And the second edition, the Super Tecmo Bowl, was the first time you had season mode. And so a lot of people of our vintage have really good memories of that video game, and I think they're the ones that are putting up the big bucks for this Tecmo Bowl insert.
Wild, and just for all the bozos like me and you who grew up playing Tecmo Bowl and still might play Tecmo Bowl from time to time, and now these cards coming out. Like, where have you been all my life? They're beautiful. They're great images.
Right.
What a tip of the cap to, 35-year-old game or almost 40-year-old game here now, but it is still resonating from a pop culture standpoint. And I guess I'm wondering, I haven't seen it yet, but is there a Bo Jackson signed Tecmo Bowl insert for that?
Oh yeah, there is a Bo Jackson Tecmo Bowl card, and there is an autographed version of it. And when you think about that, all I feel like is it's one of those masterpiece cards, like the Sidney Crosby Golden Goal autograph card, which just had so many elements that came together perfectly. I mean, for a football fan of the late 80s, of Bo Jackson, I mean, it is absolutely perfect. And I am very curious to see what those would go for. Couple episodes ago, we had an impromptu chat about Bo Jackson, and wow, like this is the next big piece for Bo Jackson collectors. There's no doubt.
Okay, so that's happening right now in the industry as we speak. Also on GRADExmedia.com, a great article just dropped, written by Connor McGrath, all about SGA, arguably the greatest player on the planet right now on the hardwood. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander chasing another chip, chasing another ring. He has been everything right now. Where's the collectible industry sitting with him? Obviously, he's not American, so does that impact in terms of the allure, or is he sky high right now?
Yeah, so in the story, Connor makes two very interesting comparisons. One of them will let you explore, and as an Easter egg, he makes a comparison of what two other players in the NBA make up his game. If you mash together two current NBA players, how do you get SGA? But the second point he makes is in regard to who the most collectible non-Americans are. And he compared SGA to Victor Wembanyama and Luka Doncic. And it does make for a very interesting debate, with his championship, with his MVP. I mean, he's done more than both of those guys combined. So he challenges the point of who should be more collectible. And anyway, I encourage people to read that story. It's he makes some good insight into his collectability, where he came from as a player. And the other thing, too, is he kind of snuck up on us, right? He wasn't a first or second or third overall pick. He was taken a little bit later in the draft, actually a few picks after Luka Doncic. And he didn't really find his game until after he was traded from the Clippers to the Thunder. So, sometimes the players that take a little longer to develop and aren't, don't have that initial hype, it does take longer to get collector acceptance. So anyway, great piece. Really happy to have some good content on SGA. He's, I'm in Waterdown, Ontario, which is part of the city of Hamilton, and we're partly saying the best player on the planet is from Hamilton, Ontario. I mean, that's just awesome. And then, of course, it gets you thinking, right? Who's the better player? SGA, Wemby, or Luka Doncic? Right? Hey, people, put it in the comments. Let's see what you think.
Wow.
Tough one, right? It's tough.
Wemby just getting the first unanimous Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And look, I think obviously the ceiling for Wemby feels like we haven't even seen it yet, or even come close to it yet, in terms of what we've seen from Victor Wembanyama. Shai, we might be seeing, close to the ceiling, and it's amazing. It's amazing, but I think if you're looking for, the long-term play, Doncic, I think obviously health has already been a concern, and I think conditioning has been a concern already. I think Shai, obviously,
loved. He has some monstrous sales. He has $3 and $4 million sales. There's a different level of love for that guy. But we talked about
plays
it
in big markets, right? Obviously, he's a Laker.
Well, that too.
And prior to that, he was playing in Dallas, and
he
was playing in Dallas as well, right? So
that makes a big difference for sure.
Yeah, so you do wonder the impact on that. So fascinating story. Connor McGrath has got that story up right now on GRADExmedia.com about the trend that is happening right now around SGA in the collectibles industry. And hey, listen, we should remind everybody as well, Fab, we could, if you want an 8-hour episode on these podcasts, it is possible for us to do it, but at some point our families might leave us. So we can't cover all the weekly news on the podcast, but we also have a newsletter that drops twice a month as well. In addition, between the podcast that drops bi-weekly and the newsletter that comes out bi-weekly as well, that is a mix of both. The newsletter is free. Click on GRADExmedia.com, subscribe to the newsletter. It goes fresh into your inbox whenever it drops every 2 weeks, and it's quick and easy, and you'll be covered across the collectibles industry between us two windbags and then the newsletter, and everything's happening. Does that sound fair, Fab?
That's the best way to do it, honestly. Really, who wants an 8-hour podcast? And who wants to read 8,000 words?
Some people like long form. Some people like long form.
Sure, yeah. We're there today, I think. This is going to be a doozy. But if you combine them together, we do a pretty good job capturing the key news of what goes on within a given month. 2 podcasts, 2 newsletters. There isn't too much that's going to slip past us. And if we hit them both, subscribe to both, you'll be in the know with what's going on in collecting.
Okay, we're going to get to Baron here in just a moment. A couple of other things I want to hit on. Lewis Hamilton is getting into the collectibles industry. Literally, he's opening up He's opening up stores in Europe and Asia now?
Yeah, so I think the first one's going to be in London. In Frankfurt, I heard, is the first one. And then the plan is to be in London, but also the Middle East and Asia over the next few years. And the key is he's going to be doing it in collaboration with Dave and Adams Card World. And Dave and Adams is a retailer / distributor that's been around forever, probably since the early to mid 90s. And in fact, one of our guys, Dennis May, who's from Buffalo, who was an Upper Deck product development guy. He wrote our prospecting story. He wrote a story for us on Josh Allen. He keeps us up to date on trends in baseball and basketball and football. He worked at Dave and Adams and sees, what kind of impact they have on the hobby. They do a lot social media wise, and they opened up a shop in downtown New York City. And so they've been connected with Lewis Hamilton to now make card collecting truly global. Because we've talked about it in the past, Europe was always fed with stickers. Stickers was the collecting roots amongst people. And trading cards have only become big maybe in the last 15 years, probably closer to 10 years. So having a guy like this leading the way for trading cards in Europe, wow, that's good. And it tells us, man, trading cards and collectibles and all, it's here to stay. This is not a 90s bubble we're talking about. Between the people and the dollars and the interest and the resources put into this thing, it's here to stay. It's a big moment, I think.
Speaking of those Panini stickers, I just picked up a Nancy Green Panini sticker from 1968, the old one of the like Canada's first like rock star skier. Just picked up one of those the other day, actually, funny enough. Like great condition too from overseas.
Beautiful.
So,
way to go. Way to go.
Yeah,
There's
no,
some
felt
fun
like
stuff in there.
Found a nice little find. Now I just gotta what I would love at some point, I would love, I interviewed Nancy Green. I want to say Nancy Green Rainier got to be about 25 years ago now, when she was first involved with the 2010 Olympic bid committee, and then she kind of got nudged aside. And she was such a good spokesperson, and she was, such a force of a person. My goal at some point is to just bump into her on a ski hill one day here in British Columbia, and then have her sign that Panini sticker. So
that'd be awesome.
That's my goal. Awesome. Put it out to the universe, Nancy.
Make it.
I'm looking for you, not in a creepy way, but in a very endearing way, as a Canadian rock star athlete sort of way. Okay, last one I want to hit on before we get to Baron, but the 1936, the Batman card is going to auction here. Oh yeah, we don't discriminate on the pop culture here. Vintage non-sport auctions, October 29th to November 9th. The Strange True Stories Batman. This is the card that a lot of people think inspired the comic book here. What are we thinking here, Fab? Where is this looking? Where's it going? Talk to me. Chop it up.
This is great. So like we talked about last week with the Lord Stanley card, this is the same auction house. And I'm going to get the URL right. It's actually auctions.vintagenonsports.com.
Yeah, just rolls off your tongue.
Exactly. It's not much better. But let's get to the card. So this is the story. It's the card is called The Batman. And in the image, you have a character that has some, resemblances to who the Batman character was in comic books. And so there's always been a little bit of a question of whether or not, Batman was a true creation of Bob Kane, and maybe what kind of inspiration he had, his co-creator that he may not have given full credit to. And
Bob Kane has definitely been accused of maybe lifting some ideas or taking credit that didn't belong. Yeah.
Right. And this card doesn't help his case. And especially it's such a rare card. So from 1936, produced by Wolverine Gum. And these have started to pop up in big time auctions. And it is a very rare card to find, especially hard to find in any kind of condition. But the idea that it's the inspiration for Batman, it's not just a rumor. Like, the card has completely taken off, and collectors don't do that if they think, well, there's a chance it could be the reason for the inspiration. No, it's established that this is part of the Batman story now. And so I don't recall what grade it is that's going up for auction, but we'll get the imagery of it. We'll help pump up the sale. It's not till the fall, just like the Lord Stanley auction.
We got time.
We got time. Yeah, exactly. We'll make sure to talk about it over the months ahead. But very interesting card. I equate it to the Lord Stanley. These inspirations, these hidden gems that sat in boxes for decades that people didn't care about, and it's that whole discovery piece of non-sport that I think people find so attractive.
Well, I won't spill the beans just yet. But since we've been talking, I have gone down a rabbit hole in recent weeks, and we'll save it once some of this rabbit hole that I've been going down arrive.
Deliver.
I'll share,
okay.
Once they get delivered,
show and tell.
I'll play a little show and tell and going down in a very Canadiana way. So
I love it. We'll turn it into a whole process. We'll get some graded. We'll do some stuff with it.
See what we can do. Let's try to make it happen. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Don't forget to check out gradexmedia.com for all the latest information. Great article, as mentioned, on SGA, the newsletter as well. Make sure you're subscribed. We're going to take a quick pause for the cause. And coming up in a moment, our conversation with an absolute heavyweight in the collectibles industry, the Baron. Oh, yeah, the Baron is coming in. Baron Bedesky joins us next right here on the GRADEx Show on Earth. Well, this is our first guest here on the GRADEx Show on Earth, and we are pleased to be joined by, if you're in the collectibles industry at any point in time over the last several years, you may have encountered this individual who has been an absolute force in the industry. Baron Bedesky of the PHPA, the Professional Hockey Players Association. This tells you how often I've been around the Professional Women's Hockey League for the last year. Also from In the Game going back for a few years for some of you that may remember. And Fab, first off, Baron, thanks so much for joining us here. Really excited, and a lot of things we want to dive in and talk about this. But Fab, you guys go back here. Give us a sense of when you two first connected here.
Yeah. I'll just do a little intro because I want to hear Baron's origin story. I think people will enjoy that. But overall, Baron,
there's a real theme with origins these days, and so yeah, absolutely.
That's true. Yeah, it's rookie cards and everything. We want to hear your rookie card story.
Do we have a Baron rookie card? Yeah.
Baron, he's been a mentor to me since I finished university at Brock. We got connected through a company called Trajan Publishing, who did a magazine called Canadian Sports Collector, and he kind of just took me by the hand and guided me through the industry, and we've been lucky enough to be connected through friendships, through collecting, through our professional lives, and here we are. We did the count the other day. I think it's 27 years we know each other, and it's unreal, right? And again, to me, it's a real pleasure to have him on our GRADEx team because he's meant a lot to me professionally and personally, and man, he's a storyteller.
Baron, you still can't shake Fab here.
No, nor do I want to.
Yeah.
It's actually really a privilege how it's worked out, how Fabio and I keep coming together in our professional lives. Really what it comes down to way back in the day when I was working at the magazine, and I was the main editor of the magazine, and then we had a price guide editor. But the price guide editor decided to leave for another opportunity. And so now I needed to find someone who could handle those responsibilities. And as you can imagine, when you've got 40 pages of price guide with fine print, that's a huge volume, and accuracy, no spelling mistakes. It's so paramount, so important. So how do you find someone with those skills?
And Baron, like, just to jump in there, like, that must have been a huge hole to fill at that particular time.
It was, and I was genuinely concerned because we had put the word out through the magazine, and I think locally through a couple of classified ads at the time, looking for someone. And I mean, we got resumes that were handwritten, like that. It was, we're not going back to the 1950s here. This is, late 90s, I think.
99, I think. Yeah.
And so I was at a loss. And in the meantime, I'm having to do both jobs, which was driving me nuts. And when you're busy and you work on your desk, you have piles of paper that pile up. And one day I decided I better go through this one pile just to clean up my desk a little bit. And lo and behold, there's a yellow manila envelope. And what's this? I look at it, I pull out Fabio's resume, which I don't even remember receiving. It must have been placed on my desk at some point when I wasn't in for a day. And I looked at it and I thought, oh my God, this is the guy. This is what we want. This is what we need to do the price guide. And I was just hoping against hope that because it had been a while since he dropped it off, that he was still available. So I called right away and we had a conversation I think I left a message initially.
First,
if I remember right, Fabio, you called back. And he sounded great on the phone. It's like, okay, you're checking all the boxes here. The last thing we need to do is have you come in for an interview. And I was just hoping that there was nothing egregiously wrong. I don't know what could be going wrong. It was just my fear of like, okay, this isn't going to work out. It's too good to be true. But in the end, it turned out to be exactly that. I mean, and after a quick interview, I knew right away that as long as Fabio was gung ho on doing this, he was going to be our guy. He was well-spoken, he was articulate, he was educated, attention to detail, all the things that we needed to handle a price guide. And of course, the willingness to work at our company for a not so exorbitant salary. And we caught him.
I know those days.
Yeah.
I caught him just before he
First
was ready
job.
to head back to Ottawa too, from St. Catharines. So
Really?
the timing was just incredible. It's almost like it was meant to be. And so that was our introduction to each other. We brought him on board, and of course he did great work, for the remainder of time that I was there at the magazine.
Wow. Hey, James, could we do something? We're here to talk about Baron. I don't want to hear about me anymore. Let's hear about Baron's story. Baron's origin story.
Yeah, Baron. So how did you, at a time where, you come into the industry at a time where it's still somewhat of the Wild West. Like, obviously, you look at, the polish and the dollars and the economics around it. You probably came through a time where, I worked at a card shop, when I'm 16, and just for a few months, really just seeing a snapshot and going to some of those card conventions, and a lot of snake oil salesmen just waiting to just rob a teenage kid like myself or Fab in those days in the early 90s. But you go back, you got a few years in terms of your experience in the industry. What was it like, breaking in? Give us kind of set the scene for us here a little bit.
Well, I broke in with the magazine, with Canadian Sports Collector. It was my formal introduction into the industry, so to speak. Prior to that, though, I've been involved as a collector for many, many years, doing a lot of mail order stuff. Back then, of course, it's all pre-computer, pre-technology, basically. And there were a handful of sports card magazines that were out there. I was lucky enough to get the addresses of some of them and start subscribing. And that allowed me to build up a sort of a rapport with collectors across North America to do some wheeling and dealing, trading, and even in a handful of cases, providing some stories, some editorial for some real
Baron,
fledgling.
what were your hobbies? Like, what were you collecting as you're starting to dip your toe in this?
Well, I mean, it always was. I've been very card centric. And I wouldn't expand too much beyond the cards. The cards for me have always been first and foremost. Of course, you get into following your favorite teams, and so when that happens, you look into things like programs and yearbooks and anything having to do with your favorite team. But really, it was cards first and foremost. And I mean, the first time I can remember the first time I bought a pack of cards, I was only 7 years old, and James, I'm telling you that moment, unbeknownst to me, set a course for my life. I went to the corner store where I always had a dime to spend on penny candy, and I saw these packages in a box on the counter, and I didn't follow sports at that point. I didn't know what the NHL was or Major League Baseball, but I was curious. I was like, what is that? So I forked over my dime and I got 2 packs of cards, because they were a nickel back then. You 4 cards in a pack and a piece of gum, and they were O-Pee-Chee baseball cards from 1969. And I opened them up, and I still remember the first card I stared at. It just burned in my memory. And Fabio has seen it. I have that card still. It's nothing special. I wish I could say it was a Hall of Famer or something.
I was gonna say
that.
Reggie Jackson rookie from '69 or whatever.
No, I can't tell a lie.
What a way to open that up, right?
It was Jack Billingham, and only hardcore baseball fans will remember Jack Billingham. But that just captivated me. I looked at the pictures and turned it over, and all the statistics and the numbers on the back. I was enthralled, and that's how I learned the game, because I did not have parents who followed pro sports. I had no older brothers or sisters. I went to school with my school buddies, but nobody at that point was really into. Their fandom hadn't developed yet. Mm-hmm. So the cards, I've always maintained baseball cards in that era were the absolute perfect marketing tool to deliver to youngsters like myself and turn them into lifelong fans. And in my case, I was fortunate enough not only to become a lifelong fan of the sport and collecting cards, but I parlayed that into becoming part of the industry as well. So, it's very cool to look back on. I had no idea, the impact and how profound that little purchase of 10 cents was, but that's the real genesis of my collecting enthusiasm.
And just how you get hooked, right? I still think back for me, like my first completed sports set was the 84 O-Pee-Chee sticker book.
Okay.
And that was, Gretzky on the cover hoisting his first Stanley Cup. So the 84-85, they had just won. But, I'm 9 years old at the time, and and how vividly you remember, it's that sort of your grails, obviously they're stickers as opposed to cards. And, looking back, I, peeled them all off, and, 9-year-old me, not exactly fine detail in terms of fitting them into the box. A couple of man, I would like a do-over on that. But, Dave Christian was the last one I needed to finish that sticker book, right? Like, and you're trading with friends, but it almost becomes this addiction where you're chasing the dragon. Like, okay, now I have to finish this, but how exciting it would be. And, in those days, a set, I want to say it was 25 cents for a pack. And you think back to just going with my dad, who, sometimes he'd buy, okay, here's $2, like get yourself 8 packs of stickers, right? Which was like, oh my God, like we are feasting on a Saturday night, sitting there watching, typically it was the Leafs on at 8:00 at night for a Hockey Night in Canada game. And then just kind of opening the stickers and filling up the book as you kind of go, right? Like it was just,
beautiful,
like all the feels. So I totally get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, that's what got it started for me. And I'm glad I can remember. I'm glad I have those memories, that I locked that in. And I must have somehow innately or instinctively known that this was a big deal. Although if you had asked me at the time, I had no idea, no clue. So that was really the beginning of my baseball education and my hockey education not long after that, too. It was the cards that like I said, perfect marketing tool, but also teaching. I was just utterly fascinated with it. Learned, well, what's this number on the back here? Number 37. And then I figured out, each player has a number. So if I, that's how you collect the set, is by using the numbers. So I didn't even know that, right? So you kind of figure it all out. You learn about how players progress through the minor leagues, and why they progress, and it was such an enormous teaching tool, these cards. And really, it was my world, and has remained my world in a lot of ways all through the decades.
So let me throw this at you. And Fab, sorry to cut you off here, as you guys going down memory lane, and I'm just like the mic hog here. You can tell who's been working in broadcasting, I guess, right? Okay. But tell me this, like, Baron, what's been the biggest change you have seen from an industry standpoint, like over? I mean, obviously the game has evolved from when you were a kid and you're talking about 10-cent packs, but what has been the greatest transition, I guess, over the last half century?
Well, that's there could be a lot of things, but the one thing that really does come to mind that's been a real game changer is professional grading. Mm-hmm. I think that has it was initially looked upon with a lot of skepticism. Collector friends were not impressed. Really,
people didn't like it at first.
No, because it again, I think as collectors, we take a lot of pride in being able to grade our cards and say, listen, if you're selling to somebody, this is my grade. I'm honest. I'm upfront. And it doesn't cost you anything to grade your own card, right? And now the whole concept of professional grading comes along, where you send your card away. Oh, now the card is not in your hands anymore. It's like, some collectors got nervous about it. Am I going to get my card back? What are they going to charge me? Am I going to get dinged for postage or duty or customs? And is it going to be the same card? And then I get it, and it's graded a 7, and I think it should have at least been a 9. That whole thing. So I think it really, what it did is it made collectors accountable. Whereas in the past, there were a lot of trades that were initially agreed upon, but when the cards were shipped and delivered, the receiving person would say, well, you overgraded your cards. And of course, it's a natural human tendency for someone to overgrade their own cards. And that would kill a lot of deals. I think professional grading, by doing that, first of all, it was it's like arbitration. Each trading partner agrees to agree with whatever the professional grade is, and now it takes the argument out of how much it's worth, because hey, if it's a 7, then we know this. If it's an 8, we know that. But it started. Initially, I thought that was going to be the biggest impact of professional grading, but it's evolved into so much more than that. It's almost like a selling tool unto itself now. It's a way of legitimizing the item for the whole collecting community when it's professionally graded. It makes the collectors accountable, and it takes the mystery away from it. It's like, these are the facts, Now you still have some people out there who will balk at the whole idea of professional grading, but you still have people balking at players in the NHL using not using wooden sticks, right? So you got to roll with the times, and I think this is just necessary. It expedited commerce within the collecting industry. It really was a shot in the arm for the hobby when I think it really needed it.
Fab, you wanna follow up on that one?
Yeah, it's funny because from my perspective, so professional grading in trading cards started in 1991 with PSA, and their parent company had done coins and money and stamps in terms of professional grading. And I was working in a card shop as well. Actually, James, you might remember, it was called All Stars at Place d'Orleans.
Yes.
We're talking around. Yeah,
wow,
I worked there for a couple of years. I think it was grade 12 and OAC, grade 13, which is bye-bye. But I remember having discussions with people. So grading is about 3 or 4 years old. That what are you talking about? We're sending our cards to California, our hockey cards to California, to have Americans grade them and charge us what? And maybe send them back? There was a heck of a lot of skepticism. And you're right, what Baron had said about people taking pride in grading their own stuff was very meaningful. Like, oh, I can grade my own cards, and that was a big deal, and it did take a while. And I mean, really, there isn't full buy-in even today. It's people. It all depends on how you collect, right? If it's more for an investment purpose or just for the love of your personal collection, grading may or may not come into play. But I would agree. Grading to me is kind of what flipped it into an industry, I think, from a hobby.
So both you agree, Baron, you first on this. Both you agree in a good way.
Yeah. There's some pushback from some collectors, but yeah, this needed to happen. And I think the proof is in the pudding. We're seeing, like, you go to any large card show, and we have the Expo in Toronto coming up, and all the key cards there are going to be in slabs. They're going to be graded. Those are the cards that are generating the most money, the most publicity. There's just no way of getting around it. You're really a part and parcel of the hobby now, more so than I would have expected, and really more so than any of the old school type collectors who were back in the 60s and the 70s that they ever would have thought too. No one was championing at the time. There was just a lot of doubts, a lot of skepticism, and I think the proof is there that this is here to stay, and this was necessary.
The economics of the industry, obviously, that's another shock. And I remember having a conversation with my late grandmother, a few years before she passed, and it's like, what's the biggest change you've seen in your lifetime? And she was born in 1930. And I remember her saying, like, wealth, talk about somebody growing up in the Great Depression, and then to kind of, talking about how we're in the late, around 2020, like, oh, now all of a sudden everybody's got a huge driveway and swimming pools and multiple cars in the driveway and all of it. And, that sort of transition and the dollars of what we see right now happening within the collectible industry, especially with cards. Right now, we're just seeing these record sales, whether it's Pokemon cards or the Mantle 52. The yardsticks continue to get moved, the goalposts continue to move year after year. Baron, I want to throw this one to you and Fab. Both of you guys, I'm sure you've talked about this, but I think the one thing I struggle with today, and I'm sure there's a lot of other collectors that feel this way as well, it is trying to figure out what the HE double hockey sticks, the actual rookie card, is for a player. And I think there's a simplification if we, because we're in Canada here, there's a simplification from hockey where we've all kind of looked at the young guns with Upper Deck as being sort of that is your rookie card in hockey. But my God, basketball, baseball, football, I mean, it's a sucker's game. I mean, I try to defer to your rated rookies, from a football standpoint, but like, is this an issue at all? Like, is this contentious? I mean, because you go back to where the actual origins of, or the definition of a rookie card comes from here, Per.
Yeah, it is contentious, and far more complicated than any of us would have thought back in the day, because it just seemed like it was so obvious. I'm glad it's not just me.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
It's not just you, James. It's not just you. It's all of us. It seemed easy at the time. But then all of a sudden things got complicated. Now, recently, Fabio published a story on the on GRADEx that went into detail about rookie cards, the history of them, the definition of them, and whatnot. And he went through a first draft, and he ran it past me. I took a look at it, and I said, well, there's still a lot of complications and nuances in here that haven't been addressed. And I brought up a few things, and probably there's a lot more to it. But then he revised it and we went through it again, and there's still more points. And actually, I would encourage anyone who visits the site to read that particular article on rookie cards. It's really well done, but it won't answer all the questions. I don't know if there is a definitive answer to all the questions. And I think in the end, like, just to jump ahead of the game a little bit here, if anyone is looking for the definition of a rookie card or wants to know what is the true, the most valuable version, the market will dictate it. Definitions be damned. So you can jump up and down and say the 51 Bowman Mickey Mantle is the true rookie card. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are going to go, yeah, I like the 52 Topps. That's what we call the rookie card. And the market dictates that. That's the big money card. Now, not to say that the 51 Bowman isn't worth a lot of money. It is. But they're an example of the market dictating which is, considered the more valuable and more in demand card. And I think that goes across the board.
Baron, just to interrupt on that. Sometimes, like, to your point, so the 51 Mantle is a great example of that. And we see this in other sports, and we see this with other sets where the first card doesn't necessarily carry the value. And Fab, you talked about this, I think, on another article, on GRADExmedia.com, where with the Michael Jordan rookie, right? The star card. It's more what the market dictates as or defines as the rookie rather than what the actual true rookie is.
It's a combination, James, and maybe Fabio can weigh in here.
My head hurts. My God.
Yeah, those of us in the industry can jump up and down and say, but there's no way this certain card can be the rookie card. Yeah. And that Jordan rookie is probably the best example that you can use for illustrating confusion in the industry. Which is the rookie card? Is it the star or is it the Fleer? Technically, a lot of people would argue that it's the Fleer card. Yeah. So, and it was nationally distributed, but not in packs. It was team sets in baggies almost. It was very unorthodox. And then there were also rumors of that product being reprinted once, quite a bit later, once the value of these Jordan cards became apparent. So there's no easy answer to that, and that's where I think sometimes you have to defer to the market. What is more in demand, and that will the market will respond, will define, which cards are really perhaps looked at as the true rookie. We can label it whatever, but it's the market that really makes the call in the end. And I think this is probably a debate that's going to continue for a number of years or even decades to come.
Do you guys want to hear my random Jordan rookie attempt to buy a Jordan rookie a few years ago?
Let it fly. Let's go.
just a total side quest here story. So this is probably 2020, so like height of COVID, and as so many of us kind of got back into it again, and going through our old collections, and so kind of ramps up, and I'm like, you know what? I need me a Jordan rookie. Like I need to get one. And I was, and you know what? Honestly, I've used Marketplace a lot over the years, and I've had a lot of success with purchases. I get it's not for everybody, but for the most part, the good has outweighed any sort of negativity. But there was a guy who was selling a low grade Jordan. It was somewhere down, I want to say in like Kentucky, and I I'd found it and sent a note. He's like, yeah, and I kind of negotiated, even knocked off a couple bucks. He was like, yeah, very responsive, very responsive. Now, the tricky part, in hindsight, I should have been a little smarter on this, but like he was very insistent on like wiring the money as opposed to like PayPal or anything like that, and wiring the money. And I remember going to the bank and they were like, it's probably not a good idea. Well, I just need to do it. And, I'll have it shipped out for you, blah, blah, blah. No problem. And then anyway, no sooner do I pay, the guy, all of a sudden is hard to get a hold of. Not very responsive. Right. And it's like, okay, it's like, oh man, I'm feeling like I've been, I'm getting screwed here. And so anyway, funny enough, where his location was on Marketplace was actually his legit place, and his name was actually his legit name. So I called the local police department and just said, hey, and I think it was a pretty small town. And so like they put the chief on the phone with me, and they were like, I was like, hey, here's the situation, blah, blah, blah. And, and I said, who's the name? I shared the name. They're like, oh yeah, we know him. It's not the first time he's done this, blah, blah, blah. Man. And they're like, we're familiar with it. We're familiar with him. And sure enough, because they're like, have you already paid? I'm like, yeah. Okay. Well, because that's international, we're going to have to get the Federal Bureau of Investigation involved because it's now international, fraud. And so, I sent him a note, but the cops also paid a visit to his doorstep. And I'll tell you what, it was pretty impressive to see how efficient small town law enforcement worked, because I would say within a week, that money was transferred back up to me, and him apologizing, but kind of explaining, hey, listen, man, your little attempt to scam, because money crossed international borders, this now becomes more of a federal as opposed to just a local scam. And so he was like, oh, so
you never got the card.
Never got the card, but thankfully I got my money back. I think the only thing I was out on was maybe the cost of the wire transfer fee, which was, I don't know, whatever, $10 at the time. But I got the money back.
And that's why nice. PayPal goods and services, that's why that exists. Because if anything goes bad, it's a automatic reimbursement.
You know what, Fabio? That's a teaching moment, and that's probably an article that should show up at some point on GRADEx just to help combat fraud.
Absolutely.
So that's the closest I ever got to a Jordan rookie, aside from a handful of other rookies from that set, like Karl Malone.
That's almost a better story than actually having the card.
Yeah, there you go. Teachable moment. We talk a lot about teachable moments. So there's one for you collectors out there. But, I'm sure there's somebody listening to this right now, watching this going, well, your first mistake was dealing with Marketplace. So anyway.
Baron, you had yourself a streak of basically being at the very first, how many expos?
I think it was the first 35 or 36 of them that I had been to everyone, and most of those shows for all 3 days. There were a couple of shows where I was only there for 2 days out of 3 before I finally missed one altogether. And I think that happened around 2007 or 2008, somewhere around there. And the expo had started originally, I believe it was 1991, 90 or 91. So, and I don't know how many shows have been presented from then. You can't really do the math because it was all interrupted by COVID. But we're looking at 36 years minus maybe 2 years and 2 shows a year. So we're probably looking at 65 to 70 shows. And I've probably been to 55 of them over the years. So I've seen how the show has evolved and changed, and really become much more professional and sophisticated now. Just following along with the rest of the hobby, it was very informal at first, and still that era. And James, you mentioned this back in the early '90s when you had a little less sophisticated aspect to the hobby. Let's just put it politely. So to see it the way it's evolved over the years, and along the way too, so many people saying, "Oh, this show, the Expo, has run its course. It's going to die out." And you know what? It's bigger and stronger and than ever before now. It's become this, the momentum, the inertia it's built up over all these years is unstoppable now. So it's kind of a reflection of the hobby in general. I think sometimes when people who have been in the hobby for a while and they decide to get out of it, they tend to claim, "Oh, you know what, the hobby's dying, that's why I'm getting out," and they use it as the reason for why they're getting out, when in fact they're just getting out and for whatever reason they're not quite honest with themselves or with others about it. But I think the success of the Expo, really, it's a barometer for the hobby in general, and the fact that they draw corporate entities from not only south of the border but also even Europe. It tells you how impactful, how profound this is within the industry.
Yeah, I mean that's move over Cal Ripken Jr. Like we got the OG Iron Man of card shows right here, Baron Bedesky. And Baron, listen, thanks so much for sharing the wisdom and spitting some facts, and let's do this again. I really enjoyed this, and looking forward to all of us catching up here hopefully in a couple of weeks.
I've really enjoyed this as well. Thanks so much to both of you guys for having me on and sharing a few memories. As Fabio said, I was kind of born with the gift of gab, so I could babble on about all kinds of stuff. But it's really fun to share, my personal memories and my perception of things. And, I hope that in some small way it's made a difference, that I've chipped in on the overall course of the hobby in my own small way. It's just been a privilege and an honor for a kid who bought that pack of cards and had no idea what he was getting into at the age of 7 to actually be in the industry. And to be involved to the extent that I have been over the years has been mind-blowing, really. So, and being a part of this podcast is just another aspect of that. So thanks to both of you guys.
Well, I think I could speak for Fab in the sense that you are part of the lifeblood of the community, and a big reason why the industry has grown from, hucksters and snake oil salesmen and just a lot of the honor system to what it is now, into a multi-billion-dollar industry that worldwide. So thanks, Baron.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Baron.
There he is, our debut guest, and a rock star at that, Baron Bedesky, joining us here on the GRADEx Show on Earth. Great conversation with the legend here across the country, over 50 years in the industry, Baron Bedesky from the PHPA in the game. Great guest and fun to great go down memory lane, I'm sure, Fab. But what awesome. A lot of insight from both you, and I my head might hurt still trying to figure out this whole rookie thing.
We should just call this the greatest rookie podcast of all time, or what, but Baron, he offers such great insight on things, from being an OG collector back. He saw the industry evolve and grow up. And my God, he's such a storyteller, and it felt like we were chatting for 20 minutes, and it was significantly longer than that. And that seems to be the nature of, the relationship with Baron. We just get lost in these stories and ideas, and like I said, he'll fit in well here with our long-windedness.
No kidding. Yes. And yes. So that's it. We like to talk around here, and this is why you're probably listening or watching right now. And a reminder, if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube page. If you're watching along right now, make sure you're subscribing in audio form as well. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify as well, and follow along on Instagram, on X as well, for all the latest content and clips and additional add-ons that we like to share across social media platforms as well. He is Fab Del Rio. I'm James Cybulski. We're going to come up for some air because I think our lungs might need it. And we will see you in 2 weeks right here on the GRADEx Show on Earth, powered by GRADEx Media. See ya.